On a warm Saturday morning, Thomas Gray sat silently in his old Camry, following his daughter Linda's shiny Lexus down Scottsdale Road. He kept 2 car lengths behind her, an old habit from his years working as a court psychologist. Linda had insisted on taking him to a health spa to bond, but Thomas felt something was off the moment she arrived earlier than usual. She kept glancing at him in her mirror, gripping the steering wheel too tightly. "Dad, when was your last full medical checkup?" she asked. Thomas answered calmly, but his mind kept asking a different question. Why was she suddenly so interested in his health today? When they arrived at Serenity Springs Spa, Thomas parked close to the exit as usual. Inside, the air smelled like eucalyptus and expensive stone. Linda hurried to the reception desk, her voice animated in a way Thomas recognized from people trying too hard. A young attendant offered him herbal tea, but before he could drink, a hand gripped his wrist. "Mr. Gray, don't drink anything from her," whispered Mrs. Walton, a woman with frightened eyes. She explained she worked there and recognized him from a case years ago. Her voice trembled as she said, "Your daughter asked about strong sedation. Something is wrong." Thomas lowered the untouched tea, feeling his pulse slow the way it used to when dangerous truths emerged in the courtroom. He glanced toward Linda, who was still speaking with a man in a suit. Her hands moved too much, her words sharp and controlled. "Where is the emergency exit?" Thomas asked quietly. Mrs. Walton pointed toward the hallway, but he was already walking. Not running. Running draws attention. He pushed the emergency door open, triggering the alarm, and stepped into the blinding Arizona sun. Behind him, he heard his daughter shout his name, but he didn't look back. His phone buzzed non-stop as he drove. Call after call from Linda flashed across the screen, each more frantic than the last. "Dad, where are you? Dad, answer me. I'm calling the police." Thomas ignored them, pulling onto the shoulder near a pharmacy to steady his hands. The same daughter who rarely visited now bombarded him with concern that felt rehearsed. "Something nice," she had said earlier. His gut twisted. "That's what a spider says to a fly," he muttered. When the buzzing slowed, he continued toward his quiet neighborhood in Desert Ridge, hoping home would bring clarity. But home did not bring peace. As Thomas turned onto his street, he froze. His garage door was open. He never left it open. A silver sedan sat inside beside the empty space where his car usually rested. His phone buzzed again, but this time it wasn't Linda. A text from his son Eric flashed across the screen. "Dad, don't go inside. Call me now." Thomas stepped out of his car anyway, heart hammering, listening to faint voices drifting from inside his house. One of them was laughing softly, and the sound nearly stopped his breath. It sounded exactly like his late wife Emma. Thomas stood beside his car, feeling the afternoon heat press against his skin as the laughter inside the house grew clearer. He reached for his back door key, but it slipped from his trembling fingers twice before he finally forced it into the lock. Every instinct from his years in forensic work screamed that something was terribly wrong. He removed his shoes in the laundry room, an old habit Emma used to insist on, to avoid making noise. The voices drifted through the hallway, calm and casual, as if the speakers belonged there. Then he heard a man whisper, "Stop pacing, you're making me nervous." Thomas froze. That second voice, the lighter one, belonged to a woman, and it chilled him to his bones. "Relax. He won't suspect anything," she said. It was Emma's voice. Not a recording. Not a memory. Her real voice, unmistakable after 40 years of marriage. Thomas pressed himself against the wall, inching toward the living room doors, his breath shallow and controlled. The man spoke again, frustrated and frightened. "Linda said he left the spa through the emergency exit. He's not confused. He's sharp. Too sharp." Thomas tightened his grip on the wall as the truth twisted inside him. Through the narrow opening between the French doors, Thomas finally saw them. A tall man he recognized as Mark, his son-in-law, paced near the fireplace, wiping sweat from his forehead. And on the sofa, holding Thomas's favorite mug, sat Emma, alive, calm, and completely unchanged except for shorter hair and a darker sweater. She spoke with the confidence of someone who had rehearsed her lies for months. "He's asking questions. He's noticing things. We need to move faster." Thomas bit down hard on his lip to stop himself from making a sound. The sight of her nearly tore him apart. But then his phone vibrated in his pocket. The buzzing echoed through the quiet hallway like thunder. Mark stopped pacing. Emma stiffened. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Mark nodded slowly. "A phone. From the kitchen." Thomas turned, heart pounding so loud he feared they would hear it. His heel scraped against the tile, one tiny sound that changed everything. Mark whispered sharply, "Someone's here. Check the kitchen." Thomas didn't wait. Instinct took over, and he bolted through the laundry room toward the backyard. He crashed into a patio chair, pain shooting up his leg, but he didn't stop running. The fence gate swung open easily, too easily, and he stumbled into his neighbor Harold's yard. Harold opened his back door before Thomas even reached it, alarmed by the noise. "Thomas, what happened? You look like you saw a ghost." Thomas grabbed Harold's arm, barely able to breathe. "I did," he gasped. "Harold. Emma's alive. She's in my living room." Harold guided him inside, his firefighter instincts kicking in. "Sit down, Thomas. Start from the beginning. Tell me everything slowly." Thomas sat in Harold's kitchen, gripping the edge of the table as he struggled to steady his breath. "She was sitting there, Harold. Drinking from my mug. Talking like she never died." Harold knelt beside him, speaking softly. "Thomas, we were at her funeral. We carried the casket. Are you sure it was really her?" Thomas nodded fiercely. "I lived with that woman for 4 decades. I know her voice, her face, her hands." Harold placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Then something very dark is happening, and you're not imagining it." Thomas pulled out his buzzing phone and stared at the messages flooding in from his son, Evan. "Dad, please call me. It's urgent. Dad, don't go home. I knew about Mom. I'm sorry." The words struck Thomas harder than Emma's reappearance. "He knew," he whispered. "My own son knew she was alive." Harold steadied him. "Thomas, you need to breathe. Whatever they're planning, you can't face it alone." The weight of betrayal pressed onto Thomas's chest until he felt physically smaller, older, and painfully aware that his own family had been hiding secrets for a very long time. Moments later, car doors slammed outside. Thomas and Harold peered through the window just in time to see Linda's white SUV pulling up beside Mark's sedan. And then Emma stepped out, alive, composed, and walking straight toward Harold's front porch as if she already knew where Thomas was hiding. Harold whispered, "Back downstairs. Basement. Now." The two men moved quickly, though their aging knees protested with every step. As they crouched behind Harold's old water heater, they heard Emma knock sharply and call out, "Harold, please. I know Thomas is inside. He's confused. Let me help him." Thomas pressed a hand over his mouth, not to stay quiet, but to stop the scream rising from somewhere deep. "She sounds so normal," Harold whispered. "Too normal." Emma's voice floated down through the floorboards. "Thomas isn't well. He's imagining things. He ran from the spa. We're worried." Thomas shook with anger and disbelief. Imagining things? She planned this. The knocking continued for nearly 10 minutes, joined occasionally by Linda's soft pleas and Mark's rehearsed concern. Then finally, footsteps retreated, car engines rumbled, and the house fell silent again. The two men climbed upstairs slowly, each step heavy with fear and confusion. Harold poured Thomas a large glass of water and waited until he could speak again. "Harold," Thomas whispered, "why would she fake her death? Why would Linda help her? Why would Evan stay silent?" Harold sighed deeply. "Desperation makes people do insane things. But this feels planned." Thomas rubbed his forehead, trying to piece together a puzzle made of lies. "I need to know why. And I need proof. Without proof, they'll twist every word I say." Later that night, while Harold slept in his armchair, Thomas paced the living room, replaying Emma's voice in his mind. He remembered his court days, how criminals always slipped when they felt safe. "They think I'm weak," he murmured. "Let them think so." A plan began to form. Evidence. Surveillance. Documentation. He still had his old equipment stored in his garage. Hidden cameras, miniature microphones, everything he'd collected from years of studying criminal behavior. "If they want to trap me," he said to himself, "I'll let them walk right into their own trap instead." By midnight, Thomas had returned to his house while Harold watched from across the street with binoculars. Thomas picked the back door lock of his own home, something that frightened him more than it impressed him. Inside, the house felt unfamiliar, as if Emma had rearranged pieces of his life while pretending to be dead. He moved room to room, installing tiny cameras behind books, picture frames, and air vents. He placed microphones under tables and inside clocks, each one capturing every breath, every whisper. "Let's see what the truth sounds like," he whispered. Hours later, Thomas entered the master bedroom, the room he had avoided since Emma's funeral. Her favorite scarf was draped over a chair, still carrying the faint lavender scent she used every night. For a moment, grief stabbed him with old memories, but he forced himself to open her wooden memory box. Inside lay a forged death certificate, slightly off-center in watermark and signature. Beneath it, old photographs of Emma smiling beside Linda, happier times that made the betrayal cut deeper. Thomas photographed everything, building his case piece by painful piece. By 4 a.m., Thomas slipped out of the house and returned to Harold's, exhausted but determined. The next morning, he arranged a meeting with Ms. Walton from the spa to gather her testimony. She trembled as she handed him a folder filled with notes, receipts, and details of Linda's questions about sedation. "Mr. Gray," she whispered, "your daughter wasn't acting out of fear. She was acting out of calculation." Thomas thanked her, knowing this evidence would be crucial. Every new piece sharpened the terrible picture forming in his mind. Back at Harold's kitchen table, Thomas spread out the documents, photographs, and recordings he had gathered. Harold leaned over them, eyes wide. "Thomas, this is bigger than anything I imagined." Thomas nodded slowly. Emma didn't just fake her death. She built a story, controlled the narrative, and manipulated everyone around her. Harold asked quietly, "So what now?" Thomas folded his hands. "Now we turn everything around. They think they're closing in on me. But by paragraph 40 of this story, they're the ones who'll be standing in a courtroom." Thomas spent the afternoon in Harold's living room, headphones on, listening to the live audio feed from his hidden microphones. Every corner of the house whispered betrayal. Around 3 p.m., he heard footsteps and the soft click of the front door. Linda's voice filled the speakers. "Mom, we need to calm down. Dad will come around." Emma answered sharply, "He won't. Thomas is smarter than we thought." The cold certainty in her tone confirmed everything Thomas feared. Harold watched his face tighten. "They're planning something," Thomas whispered. "Something they think I won't see coming." That evening, Thomas heard a second voice joining them, Mark, restless and anxious. "I can't do this anymore," he muttered. "He's your father, Linda. We're going too far." Emma responded calmly, as if explaining a simple math equation. "Do you want jail? Do you want our debts exposed? Thomas must be managed." The word managed hit Thomas like a punch. They weren't just lying to him, they were preparing to control his entire life. Harold clenched his jaw. "Thomas, they're desperate. Desperate people make reckless choices." Thomas nodded. "Yes. And desperation always leaves evidence." The next morning, Thomas gathered every recording and document into labeled folders. "This isn't just their plan," he told Harold. "It's a full conspiracy." Harold insisted they contact the police, but Thomas shook his head. "Not yet. If I go too early, they'll twist everything. I need undeniable proof." As they reviewed the files, Thomas suddenly paused. "Harold, they're building a case that I'm confused. That I'm unstable." Harold frowned. "But you're not." Thomas tapped the table. "I know that. But the court won't know without evidence of their manipulation." Later that afternoon, Thomas called Linda using Harold's landline. He softened his voice, letting an intentional tremble slip in. "Sweetheart, I haven't been feeling well. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should update my will." Harold watched in shock as Thomas played the role perfectly. Linda replied too quickly, "Dad, that's wonderful. We can help with everything. We just want you safe." Thomas responded gently, "Let's meet tomorrow. All three of you." When he hung up, Harold asked, "Why pretend you're confused?" Thomas's eyes hardened. "Because predators reveal themselves when they think their prey is weak." The following day, Thomas returned to his house for the staged family meeting. He positioned himself in his armchair, with his hidden recorder clipped inside his shirt pocket. Linda, Emma, and Mark arrived exactly on time, carrying folders and forced smiles. Linda sat beside him, touching his arm. "Dad, we're here to help you make good decisions." Emma added, "This is for your peace of mind." Thomas acted hesitant. "I've been forgetting things lately." Mark nodded eagerly. "Then it's best we take over the hard choices." Thomas kept his expression slow and weary, though inside he was gathering evidence with every word. As they continued talking, Emma slipped. "Once the guardianship papers are signed, we can finally stabilize everything." Mark whispered, "Emma, not now," but the recorder caught it perfectly. Linda handed Thomas a stack of documents. "Just sign where I highlighted." Thomas flipped through slowly, pretending confusion. "What is all this?" Linda's voice softened. "It's just to help manage your finances. You trust us, right?" Thomas nodded weakly, careful not to reveal the spark of triumph inside him. They were confessing without realizing it. After they left, Thomas replayed the recordings with Harold. "This is enough to start the legal process," Harold said. "Enough to show the court what they're doing to you." Thomas exhaled deeply. "This isn't just about stopping them. It's about protecting what's left of my life." He contacted a well-known attorney named Mr. Cole, who specialized in elder fraud. When Mr. Cole heard the recordings, he sat back in disbelief. "Thomas, this is one of the clearest cases I've seen. We can take this to court. But timing is critical." For the next 2 days, Thomas and Mr. Cole worked tirelessly to assemble a full case. They organized recordings that showed deception, financial documents that revealed hidden deposits, and transcripts proving Emma had faked her death. Thomas barely slept. Harold watched him grow older by the hour. "Are you sure you can face them in court?" Harold asked quietly. "Yes," Thomas answered, though his voice trembled. "They tried to erase me. I won't let them." Every piece of evidence tightened the storm Thomas planned to unleash. On the evening before the court hearing, Thomas received a message from Evan. It read, "Dad, I knew Mom was alive. She made me keep it secret. I'm so sorry." Thomas stared at the screen for a long moment. He didn't reply. The damage ran deeper than he knew how to express. But Mr. Cole looked at the message and said, "This could help. It shows long-term manipulation. It strengthens your case." Thomas nodded but whispered, "It's still my son." Harold placed a hand on his shoulder. "Some wounds take time, Thomas. One battle at a time." The morning of the hearing arrived with cold tension in the air. Thomas stood outside the courthouse in a simple gray suit, holding Harold's arm for support. Linda, Emma, and Mark approached from the parking lot, whispering urgently among themselves. They did not see Thomas yet. They did not know the evidence he carried. They did not expect the truth to strike them today. As Thomas stepped through the courthouse doors, he felt fear, strength, and heartbreak all at once. "This is it," he murmured. "Today the lies end." Inside the courtroom, Thomas sat beside Mr. Cole while Harold and Evan quietly took seats behind him for support. Across the aisle, Emma adjusted her blazer and avoided his eyes, while Linda glanced nervously at the judge's bench. The bailiff called the case, and the judge asked why Thomas's family was seeking guardianship. Their lawyer stood confidently. "Your Honor, Mr. Gray is confused, paranoid, and unable to manage his affairs." Thomas remained still, letting the lie echo through the room. Mr. Cole whispered, "Let them finish. Then we break everything open." Linda took the stand first, speaking softly as she described her father's decline. She listed imaginary episodes, lost keys, confused dates, wandering from home. Each lie struck Thomas like a cold blade. Then Emma stepped forward, her voice smooth and convincing. "Your Honor, Thomas has been unstable for months. We simply want to protect him." The judge nodded thoughtfully, taking notes. Emma looked satisfied, believing the story was landing perfectly. Thomas kept his gaze low, hiding the storm in his eyes. Mr. Cole tapped the table twice, his signal that the tide was about to turn. "Your Honor," Mr. Cole began, rising calmly, "we have evidence that contradicts every claim made today." He pressed a button on his laptop, and Emma's voice suddenly filled the courtroom speakers. "Thomas won't cooperate. Once he signs the guardianship papers, everything becomes easier. Gasps spread across the courtroom. The judge looked up sharply. Linda's face drained of color. Mark sank deeper into his chair. Mr. Cole continued, "This is a recording taken in Mr. Gray's home. And there is more, much more." He played another clip, Emma saying Thomas needed to be managed. Then came the recording of Mark whispering urgently, "After he signs, we control everything." The judge's pen froze midair. "Is that your voice, Mr. Wade?" He stammered, I was pressured." Mr. Cole stepped forward. "Your Honor, this family did not come to protect Thomas. They came to steal from him." He displayed the forged death certificate on the large monitor. Emma Gray staged her own death. "Here is proof the document was altered. Here are bank records of money moved into secret accounts. This was a calculated plan, not care, not love." Linda burst into tears. "Dad, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far." Emma shot her a cold glare, but it was too late. Evan stood from the back row, voice trembling. "Your Honor, my mom threatened me for 2 years. She faked everything." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Emma's anger cracked through her calm exterior. "Stop talking, Evan," she snapped. But the judge had heard enough. "Ms. Gray, you will remain silent until addressed." Emma fell quiet, her face tightening with resentment as her lies unraveled rapidly around her. Mr. Cole approached the judge's bench. "Your Honor, we move to dismiss the guardianship petition entirely and refer this case for criminal investigation." The judge nodded, her expression stern. "The petition is dismissed. And I am ordering an immediate inquiry into fraud, coercion, and identity deception." Emma's eyes widened in disbelief. "You can't do this." "I did what I had to." The judge answered coldly, "What you had to? Or what you wanted?" Police officers stepped forward. Mark lowered his head. Linda sobbed uncontrollably. Emma clenched her fists as the officers approached her. Thomas watched as his once-beloved wife was placed in handcuffs. "Thomas, please," she pleaded, her voice shaking. "We can fix this." He stood slowly, gripping his cane. "You let me bury you," he said quietly. "You let me grieve you. And you tried to take the rest of my life too." Emma's face crumpled for the first time that day. "I loved you," she whispered. Thomas looked into her eyes, the eyes he had once trusted with everything. "Maybe once," he replied, "but not anymore." The officers led her out as the courtroom remained silent. Linda stepped toward him, trembling. "Dad. I'm so sorry. I didn't know how deep it would go. I just wanted to help Mom." Thomas looked at her, heartbreak and exhaustion mixing inside him. "Linda, I raised you to stand on truth, not manipulation." She wiped her eyes. "I'll accept whatever consequence comes." Thomas nodded slowly. "I hope you learn from it." Evan approached next, tears streaming. "Dad, I should have told you everything sooner." Thomas placed a tired hand on his son's shoulder. "Trust is broken, Evan. But maybe one day, we rebuild." Outside the courthouse, sunlight warmed Thomas's face as he stepped onto the wide concrete steps. Harold joined him, patting his back. "It's over, Thomas. You won." Thomas breathed deeply, letting a gentle peace settle into him. "I didn't win everything," he said softly. "I lost pieces of my family I'll never get back." Harold nodded. "Maybe. But you saved yourself. And that matters too." Evan lingered nearby, waiting to walk him to the car. For the first time in months, Thomas felt the slightest glimmer of safety return to his chest. That evening, Thomas sat in Harold's backyard as the sun dipped behind the rooftops. The air was quiet, broken only by rustling leaves. "What now?" Harold asked gently. Thomas stared at the sky. "Now I start over. Small steps. One day at a time." He looked at the folder of cleared evidence resting beside him. It held the record of every truth he fought to protect. "They tried to erase my life," he whispered, "but I'm still here." He closed his eyes as a calm breeze passed over him. And for the first time, he felt free. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tell me your thoughts in the comments below. I love reading your reactions.